Our St. Louis Dragons are playing some great football this year. We currently sit at a record of 7-2, and we're looking to keep things rolling today here at home in Week 11 against a tough 4-5 Denver Broncos team. We've also got a prospect profile today as we'll be going over the running backs and wide receivers in this year's draft class. So in the last episode, we had a doubleheader. We beat the Niners and the Giants by 6 points each. The Niners game, we won in overtime, making it 3 consecutive overtime wins dating back to the Commanders in Week 6. And as I look at our schedule throughout the year, every game has been remarkably close, being decided by no more than 12 points. We're 7-2, but we don't have a very convincing point differential. We're not blowing anybody out. But on the flip side, our largest margin of defeat is only 3 points. Both of our losses came on game-winning field goals. But we still don't have anywhere near as high of a point differential as some of the other teams at the top. Carolina, for example, has a point differential of around plus 100, whereas ours is at like plus 40. So before we get into this Broncos game, as I mentioned, we do have our next prospect profile. Our GM wants to talk to us about a defensive tackle, but we're not looking at the big guys today. That'll be a little bit later in the season. We're looking at the skill position players today, starting with running back. And this is an interesting position for us because a lot of you guys have suggested that we look to add a running back in the offseason, and I think it makes sense. DeAndre Swift has had a really good season in like the 4 healthy games we've had him play, but he's 27 years old, he's on the last year of his contract, and he wants a pretty big extension, which feels like a lot of money for an injury-prone running back turning 28. We've got some young guys I like, such as Darwin Juskins and Tornado Davis, but I'm not entirely sure if these guys can be a lead running back like what we have with DeAndre Swift. So as I look at this draft class, I think there's plenty of talent here. It's not overly top-heavy, but I like the depth, and I do like some of these players at the top, and I think we very well could consider some of these guys. The top projected running back right now is Zalorian Brazil out of Florida. He's probably the only guy I could see going in the first round out of this group, at least as of right now. Brazil, I think, has got the most upside of any running back in this class because he's the most well-rounded. He's dynamic, athletic, tough, physical, and he's productive in the passing game as well. Jarrell Tate out of Oregon is a very good prospect too. Tate has mainly been used as a change of pace back over the last couple of seasons with the Ducks, but with a lot of their older running backs entering the NFL, he's been able to take on the full load this year, and he's done really well. Rashad Price Jr. out of Georgia is a very talented player too, and I think he's the perfect modern NFL running back. His ability in the passing game is really impressive, and his ability to be on the field on all 3 downs is very helpful for an offense. I really like Milan Santa out of Memphis. His stock has really gone up throughout the year. He's a little bit undersized, 5'11", sub 200 pounds, but he makes up for it with his toughness and physicality that he runs with at his size, and he's a dynamic big play threat who can break off a big run at just about any moment. Darian Wiseman from South Alabama, I think, is really good. He's currently got a day 3 projection, but I'd be surprised if he makes that out of the top 100 picks. He's your prototypical downhill, powerful, tough running back at 6'1", nearly 250 pounds, and I think he'd be a good fit for our team. I think he'd be the perfect complement for guys like Darwin Juskins and Tornado Davis long term. As we look at the options on day 3, I think starting right at the top with Ange Peek would be the way to go. Peek is a tough, patient runner who has been very solid this year for Middle Tennessee State, and I think he could end up being an early down running back at the next level. As we look at day 3, there's a lot of specialized running backs, a lot of receiving backs in particular, a handful of power backs as well. So it's just a matter of what type of running back do you need. Do you want someone who's more impactful in the passing game or somebody who can give you tough physical yards when you need it? Let's now look at wide receiver, and I think this could be a sneaky position of need in the long term. Obviously, we've got a great duo on the outside with Jamison Williams and Arturo Modelo. I don't think those guys are going anywhere anytime soon, but maybe we do need a third wide receiver in the long term. Now, Griffin Weaver's had a really good season this year, but we have to be smart with our money. Simeon Bonnet and Puma Whitlock are both up for extension soon, and those 2 guys are going to break the bank. I'm not entirely sure we're going to have enough money to pay guys like Griffin Weaver and Tykeem Keon Jr. We did draft Aaron Mayer last year, and I do like him, So if nothing else, I think it would be in our best interest to do due diligence on this receiver class. Despite the fact that I like the guys that we've got currently on our roster, I think it would be in our best interest to leave our options open, especially because there are some good ones here, especially at the top, with 3 guys who I feel comfortable with in the first round, starting with Kyon Sparks out of LSU. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, but he runs like he's 20 pounds lighter. I mean, his dynamic ability and his size is really impressive, and I think teams are going to fall in love with that. Last year, LSU had the top projected receiver in the class with Dejuan Carroll, who ended up going to the Eagles. I think Sparks is even better. His ability to separate, his ability to make plays after the catch, is just really impressive for a guy of his size. If your team misses out on Sparks early, there are some good backup options. Jaquan Stennis out of Kentucky has had a great season this year for the Wildcats and has propelled himself to being the second receiver off the board. Another guy who's dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's not as big as Sparks, and I don't think he's as polished as a receiver, but he is a playmaker and a weapon with the football, and whoever drafts him needs to make sure they know how to use him. Cassius Middleton out of SMU is also had a great season, in large part because he is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Jamison Fletcher, who we talked about earlier in the season, is a possible second to third round pick. Middleton is a big slot guy, and I think he can play on the outside as well. Good separator, good hands, not as dynamic though as those top 2 receivers. Let's take a look at the day 2 guys. I think this could be more where the Dragons consider a receiver, if that's the route they want to go with. And we'll start with Zaire Copels Jr. out of Middle Tennessee State. He's a big guy, and I think the first thing that pops out on him when you turn on the tape is his body control and his size, his ability to separate. He's got really good hands, and he really can stretch the field vertically with his speed and athletic ability. Let's take a look at Midas Mikol Jr. out of Washington. So he has played in the FCS throughout his career at Eastern Washington University, transferred over to the Huskies this year as a big, physical, dominant, 6'6", 230-pound plus receiver. If you remember last year, Washington had a similarly profiled receiver with Braxton Merkenberg, who was drafted in the second round by the Patriots. Mikol hopes that he'll be developed similarly to a guy like Braxton Merkenberg, and he can be drafted in a similar range, likely late first, early second. Dom McKnight out of Ohio State is one of the most polarizing players in this draft, regardless of position. He stands at 6 foot and only weighs 167 pounds. Yes, he can run by you, but his lack of physicality is a little bit concerning. He needs to bulk up, and if he does, I think he could end up being one of the best receivers in this class. He knows how to get open, he knows how to catch the ball, and he is a playmaker with the ball in his hands. Andromache Coyote out of Arkansas is another one of the more polarizing players in the class. He's a big kid, 6'4", 220 pounds, but he's a little bit on the raw side, a project type of player. But I think with his size and athleticism, if he gets coached up, I think he could end up being really good. Let's go down the board a little bit, look more at some of the third-round projected players, guys like Felipe Pena, Caleb Parker. I want to look at Demas Williams, though, out of Missouri. He's also on the small side, 5'10", around 170 pounds. So again, the lack of size is a little bit concerning, but he might be even more dynamic than Dom McKnight out of Ohio State. His quickness at his size is really impressive. It's just that his lack of size, obviously, is going to be a concern. If he struggles with the physicality of college corners, it's going to be even harder in the NFL. I think it's a good group of receivers here at the top, and as we go down into day 3, the name to watch is California's Hollywood Hooks. Another raw player who's a big kid, 6'6", 230 pounds. He's got all the measurables, but he's got a lot of work to do as a receiver. Teams are going to like his basketball background, and I think that's really going to help him out in improving his physicality as a jump ball receiver. As we look down the board, there are some other names to watch out for. I really like Reggie Burnham out of Arizona State. He's really improved throughout his collegiate career. I think he's a good player. And there are some other guys here on day 3 who I think could end up being really good value picks and possibly see their stocks go up throughout the season. So with that, we will shift our attention now to the Denver Broncos, who currently have the record of 4-5. They're probably not going to win their division, but they are a pretty tough team. They've played against some good teams this year and have really held up. This Chiefs game last week in particular is especially interesting because they led 17-0 at halftime, and they blew it. Got to imagine there's going to be extra motivation after getting embarrassed last week by Kansas City. Under center, the Broncos have second-year quarterback Zachariah Drake, who they drafted in the second round out of the University of Cincinnati. He's a talented physical player, and I think he's gotten off to a pretty good start in his NFL career. He replaced Derek Carr down the stretch last year, and he was pretty solid. And this year, I think he's taken another step up. It hasn't been perfect per se, but I think overall he's been pretty good. They've got a solid group of weapons with Javonte Williams, Fadiala Cisse, Jerry Jeudy, first-round rookie Jordan Acuff, Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Greg Dulcich. What I'm most scared of with this Broncos team, though, is their secondary. I think they've got the best cornerback trio in the league. Pat Surtain right now is the best corner in the game. Greg Newsome is a really good number 2. Teron Johnson might be the best primary slot corner in the NFL. And then they've got Rasul Douglas and Riley Moss as backups. Their safeties aren't much worse, with Justin Simmons, Julian Love, and Julian Blackmon as a backup. Their front seven is a little bit of a concern. They do have some good highly drafted players here, such as Noah Vandermeer and Tayron Wilson, who they've used first-round picks on. Levelin Brown Jr. out of Baylor's a talented rookie. Zach Allen's a good veteran. But the front seven is the weakness of this team. So I think it's going to be really a matter of if we can run the ball against these guys and if we're going to be able to take advantage of the short to intermediate passing game. Because realistically, Denver's secondary, their corners and their safeties are really not going to let our receivers get much separation, especially downfield. I think it should be an interesting game against a pretty good Broncos team who I think is quite talented despite being under 500. And the fact that they're coming off an embarrassing loss last week against one of their biggest rivals is going to make them want to win this game even more. So I think we are in for a challenge. Let's see if the Dragons can win another game and improve to 8-2 on this season. Second and inches, Puma Whitlock on the play action. Under pressure, he fires for the tight end, Isaiah Likely. He's going to need to have a big game. With guys like Jamison Williams and Arturo Modelo being covered tightly by great corners, Isaiah Likely is going to need to be a focal point. Here's Jamison Williams with a nice catch, drags the feet in bounds to the 26. So far, so good for the offense. Now at the 14, Puma's intercepted! Teron Johnson picks it off. A game-changing turnover for the Broncos. The Dragons' offense was just marching down the field, and then a turnover here on the first drive of the game really stalls all the momentum that they had going. Denver now with it. Drake up the middle for Cortland Sutton, and the Broncos' first offensive play of the game goes for 32 yards. Big connection from Drake to the veteran wideout, Cortland Sutton. From the 42, very next play, Drake again looks to throw it. Similar type play, this time it's caught by Jeudy on the route up the middle, and he brings it from one 42-yard line to the other. Now from the 29, Denver's offense is having a really strong drive right now. Drake looks to throw it under pressure, and it's intercepted! Oh my goodness, what a play by Jabril Fofana! His first career interception, snagging it with one hand. What a play by Fofana, who's getting some extra snaps with Devin White getting injured last week against the Giants. And we need all of our linebackers to step up. Good to see Fofana doing such so far with the best defensive play of the year. Baron Browning in the backfield on first down with a sack for a loss of 5. Both quarterbacks looking to rebound after starting this game with a pair of interceptions. As on 3rd and 4, it's a draw for Darwin Juskins, and he nearly gets the first down. The Dragons wanted to catch the Broncos off guard there with the draw play, and it almost worked. But it's Baron Browning again with the tackle, and the Dragons decided to punt it. I think it's too early to go for it in your own territory. Broncos back with it. Drake on the run, connects with his tight end, Greg Dulcich, who brings it to the 40-yard line. Both offenses continuing to move the ball well, despite the fact that we have not had any points going into the second quarter. First play of the quarter, Drake looking deep. It's caught by Okudah, but he's unable to keep the feet in bounds. Nearly another interception from Zachariah Drake. 2nd and 10 after the near turnover. Drake under pressure. He's sacked on the linebacker blitz by Owen Popo. With Devin White's injury, nobody has more pressure on them than Owen Popo, who's now our full-time lead linebacker. He's got the green dot now and everything. I'm really curious to see how he does. Drake throws it away. He was under a lot of pressure from B.J. Ojulari, and that'll bring out the field goal unit for a 54-yard attempt. Certainly not a gimme here. And this kick is up, and it is not even close. No good. Wide left. And this game remains tied at 0. Still no points as the Dragons get it back, looking to get the first score of the day here in the second quarter. 3rd and 3 from the 50-yard line. Puma looks to throw it. It's a screen play, but he cannot get rid of it. Zach Allen in the backfield with the sack, forcing a loss of 9. Denver back with it. Nearly intercepted, but instead it's caught by the rookie, Jordan Acuff II, drafted 10th overall out of Florida State, who gets the first down, gaining around 12, his first reception of the day. 2nd and 6, handoff for Javonte Williams, the veteran back, gets by a defender, and he's wrapped up by Jabril Fofana, but not before getting past midfield. Javonte Williams is one of the older backs in the NFL at this point, kind of like DeAndre Swift, but still a very productive player. 3rd and inches, on the run is Drake. He fires for his tight end, Greg Dulcich, who is quickly wrapped up at the 13-yard line by Cam Lucifer, but not before getting a nice gain. Following play with under 4 to go in the half, Javonte Williams is smothered in the backfield. That was Jabril Fofana with the initial hit, and then the rookie, Jalen Bourgeois, who finishes him off. 3rd and 12 now, Zachariah Drake looks short under pressure for Dulcich, and he is quickly wrapped up. Nice tackle by Okudah, as Dulcich is hurt on the play. That's a big deal. The Broncos have really leaned on him a lot so far. He's only going to go to the sideline, which means he should be fine, as Denver brings out the field goal unit. Missed one earlier from 54, and this time from 26 is right down the middle. And we finally have points. It took us nearly 2 full quarters, but Denver is on the board first with a field goal. Dragons back with it with 3 to go in the half, looking to stop the shutout. Here's Griffin Weaver with a nice play, getting lit up, though, at the 40. As Jedrick Wills, the starting left tackle, is hurt on the play. That's not ideal. 3rd and 1. Nice catch by Jamison Williams, who is quickly wrapped up, but not before getting the first down. 3rd and 6 now. Puma under pressure, fires for Weaver again, who breaks a tackle, and is wrapped up by Patrick Surtain, but not before bringing it all the way to the 18. 2nd and 4 now. Puma on the run, connects with Swift, and man, they are getting awfully close as Browning is hurt for the Broncos. He's been really good so far. 2nd and goal. Puma on the run, has room. He's in for a score. Puma Whitlock with a rushing touchdown. His 7th score on the ground of the season. That leads the team. And the Dragons finally get a touchdown. It's now 7-3. The Broncos still have 20 seconds and all 3 timeouts. They initially decided to wave the white flag and run the ball, but Javonte Williams got a good enough gain to where they feel like they could actually get something now. After calling a timeout, Drake goes up the middle. It's Courtland Sutton who gets it to around the 44, and Denver calls their 2nd timeout with just 6 seconds left on the clock. Got to imagine they're going to look downfield. Here's Drake, rolls out to the right, looking deep. It is caught at around the 30. They're not going to get anything more. That was the rookie, Jordan Acuff, who comes down with it. And so to wrap up the first half, the St. Louis Dragons lead 7-3. It's a low-scoring game, but both offenses, especially the Broncos, have really moved it nicely down the field, and I imagine we're going to have a lot more points in the second half. Let's take a look at our halftime report around the rest of the league. We will start with the Battle of Los Angeles. The Chargers and the Rams face off at SoFi Stadium. And so far, it's the Chargers who lead in a low-scoring game, 7-3, same score as our game. Hopefully the Chargers can find a way to win this one, as the more Rams losses, the better for us. In Minnesota, the Vikings beat the struggling Packers 35-21. Jordan Addison leading the way with 12 catches for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, as the Packers fall to 1-9. In Landover, Maryland, the Niners would win their 3rd game of the year, beating the Commanders 31-28. It's obviously been a disappointing season for San Francisco, who is currently in the basement of the NFC West, but maybe they can string some wins together, and who knows, maybe make a push for the wild card. As we go into the second half, I want to see more from the passing game. I think Puma Whitlock has been fine, minus the early interception. And then defensively, similarly, we had the big turnover early. I think Zachariah Drake has been pretty good, though, despite the lack of points. Denver will start with the ball. Javonte Williams up the middle with a nice run, breaks the tackle from Saluni, and gets around 13 or 14 yards. 3rd and 9 now for the Broncos. Zachariah Drake looks to throw it, and he's going to go deep and overthrows his man. Jordan Acuff burned Cam Lucifer. It looks like Lucifer's giving him some props after the play for a great route, but too much mustard on the pass. Dragons back with it. Nice first down here for Arturo Modelo as he brings it to the 42-yard line. Good throw by Puma Whitlock. Following play, Puma rolls out to the right. He's got open rushing room. Instead, takes a shot downfield. It's caught by Modelo. Gets by a couple defenders. He's in for a score. 58-yard touchdown. It's Modelo time. His 8th score of the year. What a play there by Puma. He could have gotten a big gain on the ground, but instead takes his chances deep. So it's now 14-3. Broncos back with it. Good run by Javonte Williams, who continues to have a really good game. Denver needs to continue to lean on him. 2nd and 6. Drake is sacked. The screenplay read immediately by Devontae Wyatt, who forces a loss of 10. 3rd and long now for the Broncos. Zachariah Drake looking downfield. It's broken up. Cam Lucifer had an easy pick right in his hands. Would have been his 4th of the year. But he doesn't come down with it, and the Broncos are obviously going to have to punt this one away, being a 4th and 16. Looks like a pretty good punt, though, and this one will roll into the end zone just barely. The Dragons dodged a major bullet. That ball nearly started inside the 5. So the Dragons start with a run. Juskins runs into his own lineman as he loses 2. The defender saying that Juskins is too short. 3rd and 12. Here's Puma Whitlock scrambling, looking downfield. He's got Modelo again. Another big play from Puma Whitlock to Arturo Modelo. The chemistry these two have is really something. 3rd and 2, handoff for DeAndre Swift, and he does not get the first down. Flattened to the ground. Big tackle there by the Broncos. It's Holman, the rookie. And now on 4th and 1, the Dragons are going to go for it. Gutsy decision, as Sincere Lorenzo is in motion. Puma will hand it off for Derrick Henry, who finds a hole, has some blocks. Good run for Derrick Henry, who's had a few nice runs today. He's been pretty good so far. Got to imagine the Dragons look to use him more. Puma on the very next play. It's tipped and intercepted. Patrick Surtain with the interception. And Lane Johnson's hurt. All that is just unlucky. The ball is tipped right into Surtain's lap, and the Broncos force a turnover in the red zone. Drake on the first play of the drive is intercepted himself. Jelani Tavai reads the play perfectly, baits Drake into throwing it to the running back, and snags it out of the air. Both teams trade turnovers, and now the Dragons have it back. 3rd and 10. Puma fires for Arturo Modelo, who's had a giant 3rd quarter. 4 catches for over 100 yards here in just the 3rd for Arturo Modelo. And to start the 4th, Derrick Henry is in for the score. The King has entered his castle. Derrick Henry's first rushing touchdown as a Dragon, and it's 21-3. Broncos back with it. Good throw by Drake downfield. He's got Cortland Sutton. Can he take it all the way? Not quite. He's wrapped up at around the 5 by Samasoni Saluni. Big play, though, from Drake to Sutton as the Broncos look to cut into this lead and get some momentum on their side. 1st and goal, Drake empty, looking for the end zone. It's intercepted again. John Johnson picks it off. Drake looking to catch up, and he does near midfield. Zachariah Drake has now thrown 3 picks today. The Dragons defense with a statement on the young quarterback as they get it back on offense up big, 21-3. Here's Puma Whitlock. He's intercepted again. Patrick Surtain with his 2nd of the game. As soon as Puma threw the ball, my heart kind of sank. Because that's when I saw Patrick Surtain, who was in the zone. And, well, yeah, he makes the play. Both quarterbacks have now been picked off 3 times today. Nobody can keep care of the football. Drake looking downfield on this new possession, again for Cortland Sutton, who's had a few really big plays for the Broncos at receiver today. 3rd and 10, around 5 minutes left to go. Drake and the Broncos looking for points. They also don't want to turn it over, so they're just going to run the ball with Javonte Williams, who loses 5. Simeon Bonnet, the Defensive Player of the Year frontrunner, is there to bring him down. Denver's going to get called for a holding on Cortland Sutton, but the Dragons are going to decline the penalty. They would rather a 4th and 15 rather than a 3rd and 20. So Drake is going to have to look downfield, presumably under a ton of pressure, and he's picked off again. Demore Dickens with the interception. That's his 4th of the season. Meanwhile, Zachariah Drake has been picked off 4 times today. What a showing from the defense. 3rd and 1 now for the offense. Swift does not get the first down, and he's injured because this team can have nothing good. Dislocated hip for DeAndre Swift, and for the 2nd time this season, he could be looking at missing extended time. Broncos back with it off of the defensive stop. Drake on first down rolls out to the left, and he's intercepted again! Jeff Okudah picks it off. That's 5 interceptions today for the Dragons defense, and 8 interceptions total in the entire game. Nobody wants to keep care of the football. The Dragons have been chewing clock over the last 3 minutes. 4th and 1. Tornado Davis does not get the first down. That means we get another drive for the Broncos and another opportunity for Zachariah Drake to turn the ball over. So there's only 3 seconds left. Drake has not thrown a pick yet. Final play of the game. Drake is obviously going to be looking for the end zone here, even though the game's already over. He goes short, and it is caught by Dulcich. He only brings it to around the 4, and that'll do it. Well, that was an interesting experience. A low-scoring game, but the Dragons win it 21-3 over the Denver Broncos. The story of this game, obviously the turnovers, specifically the interceptions. With 8 picks total, the Dragons defense had 5 on Drake, while the Broncos defense had 3 on Puma Whitlock, who had a very uncharacteristic game in terms of turning the ball over and being reckless. Outside of the interceptions, I thought both quarterbacks played pretty well. If you take the interceptions away from Drake, he was really good. But the problem is you cannot excuse 5 interceptions. There's no way behind it. As for Puma, again, he was fine other than the picks, but he's got to be more careful. He's lucky the opposing quarterback happened to be more reckless. I thought both teams ran the ball pretty solidly. Dulcich, Sutton, and Modelo stand out receiving-wise. Both offensive lines were pretty good, and obviously both defenses were very strong, especially ours, with 5 interceptions from Tavai, Okuda, Fofana, Johnson, and Diggins. One of the best defensive performances I've seen from this team in a while. Obviously, the turnovers were really impressive, but we still only allowed 3 points. So hopefully we can continue to keep it going. I don't expect 5 interceptions a week. Our defense barely had 5 interceptions as a unit coming into the game. We do have 2 new injuries, though, both of which to key starters on the offensive side of the ball. DeAndre Swift will miss the next 4 games, while Jedrick Wills will miss the next 3. Not ideal, especially Swift, because when he was injured earlier in the season, the run game was a train wreck. So I'm very worried about how the run game is going to be going forward as we take a look at the scores around the rest of the league. Unfortunately, everybody in our division ended up winning, including the Rams, who came back to beat the Chargers. Players of the week: Geno Smith, who got the start for the injured Deontay Harris in Minnesota, certainly making the most of his opportunity with 5 touchdowns. He's joined by Josh Allen, J.C. Horn, who had 2 interceptions, and of course Patrick Surtain, who also picked off 2 passes despite the loss. So that'll bring us into the next episode, and as you can take a look by our schedule up front, we've got a couple big games upcoming. 2 of our next 3 matchups are against the Los Angeles Rams, who are only a game behind us in the division. This game here in Week 12, the winner will have possession of first place. If the Rams were to beat us, we would have the same record and they would have the tiebreaker. Next episode's probably going to be a doubleheader. I think we're going to play both Weeks 12 and 13, both on the road against the Rams and then the Cowboys, who haven't been very good this year, but Dallas is obviously super talented. They won the Super Bowl last year, so we certainly cannot overlook them. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Certainly an interesting game, to say the least. I don't think I've ever seen 8 interceptions in a game like that, and I don't think I ever will again. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.